So the Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco. I think it's Eco, Umberto Eco or Eco. It's tempting to want to say Echo, but it's obviously in Eco is the Italian way. Yeah, this is my second. I did start with, which is probably a popular choice, was Foucault's Pendulum, but it was a shorter version it was like a lot. It ended up being, because I know that somewhere in my dad's library he had actually had a copy of it, or someone he knew had a copy of it, which is, so you can get this full extent. It's actually a pretty big book, and the one that I ended up reading was a lot shorter than that, so I was like, darn it. But anyway, so in the Name of the Rose, I keep wanting to say in the Name of the Rose, it's just the name of the rose. Combines everything that Eco had at his disposal, which was his main passions in life were, and also his more than pastimes, but full on his trade was a scholarly craft in life, was teaching, and it was medieval history. So it was medieval stuff with semiotics. So yeah, those two put together creates this book, because so in 1980, this is actually his first novel. I was kind of hesitant about going into this because it was a little bit bigger than and yeah, but it is it's so cozy. It has a cozy kind of atmosphere of the 14th century, particularly 1327, and it concerns this abbey, a Franciscan kind of Benedictine kind of thing. I'm not too keen on the whole Catholic all the different gradations and sects and variations of multitudes of different kind of disciplines and stuff, like, not disciplines, but faiths that are out there. I mean, especially when it comes to like Catholicism alone. So because this the plot of this has a lot of murder mystery and intrigue into it. I'll try to my best to kind of so it is, obviously it's fictional, but it's fictional characters through the lens living in a real timeline of real events, more or less. But it's on a kind of, it's like a different independent kind of world of this little microcosm of stuff that happens in this little abbey, or rather pretty big abbey, Commodious at that. And it is a lot of these different monks are wrapped up here in this. So it's the main character is William of Baskerville, who's obviously fictional, and he has an assistant too, and they get to with Adelmo of Otranto, get together with all these different names are going to actually get pretty confusing for me, so I have to kind of look where my notes are. So they all get together, and using his former Inquisition experience to investigate a murder that just happened. So it's all on the first day. There's a murder that happened in the abbey. It was So what happened was, basically, on the second day, there's one of the other monks, Venetius of Salvamic, Venantius. I'm sorry, Venantius. That's how they pronounced it. Is found dead, and he's in this vat of pig's blood. So it's a very particular kind of upsetting thing. But yeah, so there's. They look for the clues, and they find that his tongue might have had hints of like poisons or arsenic of some kind. And yeah, there's a suggestion that one of them. So William, in his kind of investigating into this, has unfurrowed this love triangle between. It was a homosexual love triangle, so it was especially kind of taboo, and especially in that day. So they all kind of are, looking for any clue that might, so like what type of passion or what type of other people might have been involved. So they're trying to like look for hints and stuff, but it's very hard. So because everything's so kept under wraps, and everything has to be very. This is where the kind of comedy comes into it. not to say that this is any less morbid or because of all the, but it's kind of a dark comedy kind of colored comes into it. So yeah, they are. There is Malachi's one of the librarian is Malachi, and he is has a ban on these certain literature, and they all decide to go into this. Even though they're not allowed, they try to get into a to talk about perceived illicit kind of things, because and then there's also Jorge, the blind monk, who is an older man, and throughout all these, there's different kind of sideline, different conversations and philosophical discussions and and banter. One of them I took away from this was the one discussing, I believe it was Jorge, and he was talking to William, and I can't remember who else, but there were one of them was talking about how laughter was such a negative thing, and it was like to laugh and express yourself was it's not a holy thing to do, and like they should like kind of be self-abnegating and very abstemious. But and I think William or one of the wiser monks kind of says that actually Jesus laughed, and he has kinds of counter his points with talking about how all the instances in which Jesus is depicted as kind of as a very laughing kind of person, in that throughout the Bible, when people are laughing, it's not meant to be a devil's trickery as it is so often associated with, but it's actually laughing is a healthy outlet. It's a way. It's not just a subterfuge kind of way of mocking the world. That's a big thing, is mocking, but it's a healthy expression of just humility and laughter there's that humility and laughter aren't so different after all. So that's kind of the takeaway that I got from that. But yeah, so lots of different suspicious things going on in in the cellars, and in the scriptorium is a big reoccurring kind of gag almost, that they keep going back to the scriptorium and finding new clues, or and one of them is actually killed. So I think it takes place between a week. I think all the murders take place day by day throughout a little week. So it's pretty a microcosmic kind of scale, but it's like so much is happening. So it's like and it's painted in a lot of different kind of, in a Boolean kind of lots of like the sacred and the profane keep meeting, and then this idea of the absolute nethers of like the worst kind of behavior, and like what one wouldn't expect from a monk, and I think they actually does a really great job of depicting that. But one of the things I found kind of taxing though was it felt like it was written for a certain in-group of people that got the joke, that they understand the references and the medieval scholarly accretions of everything that he's learned. And I think that's a little bit daunting to take on when you consider somebody who's reading it for leisure, and it's not really, and in some sense there's a kind of a fluff, not a fluff, but there is to the murder mystery unraveling and the height of this, and throughout kind of pushing this novel into action. But there's also happening so often, almost simultaneously, is this these like discussions about like anthropology and history and all these different monks and different kind of things of antiquity, and you have Aristotle's Poetics, and that also is tied into the topic of laughter, and it's like so much of it in when you combine that, or when you cast that up against everything that's happening, it seems a little silly, like a little bit just haha, like it's just ooh, like and another monk died, and it's just like ooh, it's like it just doesn't. I felt like I couldn't really take it seriously in some sense, because the contrast between the very drooling or the very kind of morbid subject matter, it was a little bit like Anatole's France with his the revolt of the angels. It felt a little bit too tongue in cheek, too haha. It's like it's just we're looking at this through a glass, not darkly, but we're looking through this very kind of very intense metaphysical kind of stuff happening. I'm talking more about Anatole France, but his and I love him too. Penguin Island was great. I loved that. I'm gonna have to read more of his. But when it came to these kind of the silliness, I felt like undercut the whole, like I didn't sense how much of that were we supposed to take seriously because in in the Name of the Rose paints a similar picture of like so much murder mystery, so much of this is like happening at the same time, and I feel like because that's so like it feels like it's not something to be taken seriously. It's like, oh well, all that stuff. It's like, well, all these monks die. It's like it says haha, and like, oh, and then there was some kind of a fire that happens. Spoiler alert! That at the end of where all this stuff happens, and I just feel like I don't have a lot of a personal stake into this, and this could be my own problem, my own gripes to do with it. It's not really a reflection of a bad writer because he's a brilliant writer, but maybe when it came to the prose and the very poetic kind of unravelings of the mystery and all that stuff, it just felt like these things didn't really. It's like, oh well, we have on this hand we have like a very wonderful conversation between monks and they're talking about all this different stuff, and then there's like another thing, and the next day there's a murder, and then it's like it's homosexual love story, and then there's a peasant girl has an affair with a young monk, and then it's like all this stuff is just going along, and it's like how much of this stuff is supposed to be taken at face value and how much of it is like supposed to be taken like, oh well, this is serious, because it's like it feels like because it's in la la woo woo land, but it's also in real world. It's like, yes, well, this is that we'll mention because we're rooting it back to reality, right? Because we're talking about all these friars or all these changes in the Abbotine and Benedictine kind of all these other abbeys and different bishops and stuff like that had, they all did their due part in creating a new doctrine, and then all this stuff is happening kind of in the background, but I don't know how much of it matters. That's the whole thing. I just don't get what matters about what exactly Eccho is getting at, because he's getting at like a very specific little 9.99. Well, I should say like less than 1% of readers that are gonna understand all the what's the word, terminology. Yeah, that's a big word, terminology. It's like he's getting at semiotics too. Like that was another one of his big ventures too. In real life, and it shows in this novel. But it's like the Name of the Rose. It's like that's a really good. That's probably what turned me on. What introduced me to this novel was there's a video essay I think by Kyle Colgreen, I think. I think it was the Brows Held High series. I think. Oshier's more familiar with the stuff, but he had I think it was that one series. But yeah, he was talking about the Name of the Rose movie particularly, but he was talking about the movie adaptation, which wasn't too long after. I want to say like late 80s, so yeah, it was less than maybe 10 years. Might have been 87, but yeah, I'm not good with movie dates. Anyway, but yeah, has Sean Connery. I can't remember who else. Ron Perlman, I think. I do remember Ron Perlman's face in this. I remember Christian Slater, very young Christian Slater, actually. I think he was like under 18 at the time of filming, so it was like probably the youngest. I think probably one of his earliest roles. I think probably even before Heathers. I think oddly enough. But yeah, so I didn't watch the movie yet, but I do intend to watch it eventually. But I do know that there's a very cozy kind of atmosphere of like we're all in this vast kind of space of an abbey monastery. And anybody who's seen like a kind of real kind of European, Central European or classic kind of antiquated monastery that's kept up to date is like knows that like can truly appreciate the true kind of grandeur of that, or not to sound kind of reductive or dismissive, but just in a sense of just in the sheer kind of size of it is like on the map. Yes, maybe it's not really all that big, but when you're taking into awe of this massive thing, it's like Raymond Carver's cathedral. He's like describe this cathedral to a blind guy, and you're like trying to describe it, and it's like, ooh, how do you do this? You've really put me to the test. But anyway, it's kind of the image I'm trying to put to test here is this. It's not something to be taken lightly, I think. And I know that I said that a million times, but there's so much depth of and these actual kind of things that I was lucky enough to kind of experience in person too. And when I was in my waylays through Europe, a very short one. It wasn't. I didn't really go to more than kind of cluster of countries in Europe, kind of. But yeah, but the so many Notre Dames in France. There's like not just the one. Obviously, it's like it's a Our Lady. So it's like Our Lady of, obviously Mary, Mother Mary. All of them kind of are in that homage to the Virgin Mary, and but yeah, the Benedictine kind of flavor of it. I don't know if I ever got to truly, but that's something I definitely want to see one of these days. If I ever go to Italy, especially, I would love to see like a kind of Franciscan kind of thing, or Thomas, kind of a Thomist kind of one as well. But yeah, I think that's all my ramblings for it. I think I got my critic or my kind of personal few little issues I had with it. If they feel like it might seem a little bit more like those are a little bit more dramatic of an issue than I made them out to be. They're honestly, it's not. I think it's not that big of a deal. It's not like it's just like a style of a flavor of books, and like I think there's definitely to each their own. I think like I will always be partial to more of a kind of a Dostoevsky slash Chekhov slash Gogol or Balzac and Flaubert, like that kind of realism through a skewered lens of showing things as they are, which reminds me I want to do a Madame Bovary pretty soon, but I'm gonna have to probably reread it again because it's been I want to say 4 or 5 years since I've read it for the first time. But yeah, that's all I have for The Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco, and I will definitely try to get to his other stuff. His Foucault's Pendulum is definitely the full extent of it is definitely in my to-do list, and I will leave it at that. So thanks for watching.